Well, welcome back. Todd from Toxic Garage Customs, and I thank you for joining me once again. Well, this is going to be a short intro, but I'm really happy to tell you that by the end of this video, we have a completed pedal, column, booster, bracket thingy. And from this point onwards, it's going to be called the thingy, because that name is just way too long. Anyway, watch the video. Look forward to the end of it, because that thingy is finished. So enjoy it. So once again, it's night time. I've been playing around with this off camera. My camera went flat. So what I've done, this part that I've taken out here is for the pedal to swing. What I have also done in the meantime, I've added back in a corner piece here. I was a bit concerned about the weakness coming through here, and this was for the plug to be able to plug into the side of the steering column, and I'm pretty certain that this gives me the access that I need, so I didn't need to take out as much in the first place. So I've cut this out. I did cut out a smaller amount in the first place and then realised I needed to take out more. I'll see how I go explaining this without this being in the car, but really this sits on an angle like that when it's in the car. So what I have, I've got some pen marks and so on, some highlighter marks on here, and what I know from sitting in the car, having this in and out several times, is that this needs to sit about like that. Now, it's not going to mean anything to you as it is, but that's about the position that it needs to sit when it's mounted onto the booster, and it gives me, I believe, about the right amount of travel that I need, as in swing backwards and forwards and so on. So what I'm doing, actually I made a mistake. I cut out some steel out of here thinking that was what I needed. Then I realised I needed to go in deeper and I didn't need to take out this piece. What I needed was a hole in the middle. That's okay. So what I will possibly do is go through and reinstate some of the steel that I took out like this. But what I need is pivot points. So I'm going to use this angle iron, and I'm going to get rid of the pedal for a second. I'm going to use this. I'm going to, where that's got the line, I'm going to weld that piece on there. So it'll brace up this again. And then on this side, I will also weld a piece like that. Piece like that. And then what will happen is that the pedal will be mounted between those 2 points. So a bolt will go through that hole and it'll mount. So that'll become the pivot point for this pedal. It'll also add extra strength into this, which it didn't need before, but it will need now, so that's okay. So it'll strengthen it up here, it'll strengthen it up there, and the pedal will swing between that and then the booster. It picks up the push rod for the booster below. So I'll keep going with that, and I'll show you where I get up to. So what I've done here is I've just welded these two pieces of angle on, and while it looks like it in the camera that they're twisted, they're not. They're actually square to each other. And I will be absolutely gobsmacked amazed if they're right. And that may sound defeatist, but all I did in the first place was try to get something in place so that I can put it back in the car and I can see whether I need to move it. It's a starting point. So I've just got, it's got the plastic spacers and some washers there, and I've got this so that it snugs in here into between those two bits of angle iron. And what we have is a pivot point. So I've got it so that if I have the top captured between those two bits of plate, then my pedal will work. It will push the push rod back and so on, exactly as they all work. So these are my pivot point. Once I work out where exactly the bolt needs to go through, then I can drill a hole, drill a corresponding hole on the other side and get it right. Now the things that I'm not certain about are, have I got these too far across one way or the other at the moment, and are they skewed? So is the pedal going to be straight, swing straight like this, or is it going to be twisted and move on a funny angle? So once I get it in place, then I'll be able to get a pretty good idea about that. I think one of the most challenging things for me, once I've worked out those angles, is to know exactly where to drill the hole, but I'll work it out. So I'm happy with the way it's coming up. It is a bit of a process. I've had this bracket and so on in and out since I've been building it probably 15 times, which doesn't sound like much, but I've got to bolt the column up, I've got to bolt the booster up. I'm by myself, so it all makes it challenging and hard. So it's a process, but we're getting there. We're getting a pedal. What I can tell you is that when I get the column put in place and I've got it all mounted up, I can turn the wheels. It's got power steering, so I can't turn them very well, but I can actually turn the wheels, and the column, the firewall and everything is solid as you would want. And I will show you that a bit later. So let's go and bolt this thing in for the 15th time. See if these are right. When I work out they're not right, then release the welds, move it, and so on. That's what we do. That is where the top of the pedal sits in between those plates. Now when we come back, that's where the pedal is, and those are those plates we're talking about. As it is at the moment, the push rod and the booster is leaning down, and that's because I've got to lift the pedal up. And incredibly, I think the position of the pedal is pretty much dead right. There's a possibility I might just need to twist the part that your foot goes on, the pad, a little bit, but other than that, I'm pretty happy with it, to be honest. So I'm going to cut, weld, grind, drive is what I'm going to do. Okay, we're doing well. So I've got these two pivots mounted in place, and I think you can see them. Yep, you can see them pretty well from there. And I cut off the edge that was overhanging, and you saw I put in a piece underneath just to infill underneath. Still got to grind that off a bit. So I'm now ready, still a bit of heat in that. I'm now ready to go through and start drilling the holes for the pedal. So I had marked internally to this part here where the pedal needs to sit. So I've got that up there with my washers and bushings and so on either side. And I know where it needs to go, I believe. And I've put a mark down here and a mark on this side. And really what it comes down to, I worked out that I need to put the pedal as low into my brackets as I can to still be able, to allow my bolt to get through. So, and what that'll do, that'll, I believe, get the plunger alignment well into the booster, and it'll get the pedal down where I want it. So This is the hardware, this is the bolt that goes through it. Looks like an M12. I'll tell you what it is actually. What have we got? Yeah, it's an M12, so 12mm bolt. It's the original Holden bolt. So I'm going to get it down as low, and I'll show you from this side. I'm going to get this down as low as I can so that that hex head can just sit flat on the base. And the idea of that is that if I can push the bolt in from one side, then I can get the nut on the other side. Now let me think about that. I probably don't want to have it quite that close because I won't be able to rotate the nut. So I'm going to have it up a little bit higher than that. Needless to say, I will lift it up high enough to be able to get the bolt in, get the nut on, and put a socket on the end of it. Because that would be an absolute fail if I didn't do that. So I'm going to make it so that I can fit a socket on to either the bolt or the nut. They're the same size. Yep, they're the same size. And that will be how I determine the exact height that I want to drill the hole through for my pivot point. At the end of the day, it's 5 or 10 mil up or down, and it's not going to change my world, to be honest. So that's it. Okay, and there we have it. So hopefully it came out as I intended. The reason it stops where it does is going this way. The back of the pedal is hitting on the firewall. So I'm hoping that I've got enough pedal travel. And the reason it stops going forward is that I have it hitting just here. So quite often there's a rubber stopper that stops that from coming too far forward. Well, I'm using it this way. I think it should be fine. I don't see any reason why that's not a suitable method of stopping the pedal from travelling too far forward. Seems like a reasonable amount of pedal travel. This pin just here is moving probably 45-50 mil, and seems like a reasonable amount of travel within the booster to me. Again, if I need to change it, then it'll be a matter of moving this pin backwards or forwards and perhaps clearancing it a little bit here, and if need be, shortening the rod on the booster. But I'm pretty confident, to be honest. So that's that. We'll bolt it in and we'll see how we go. So I've just been playing around with the pedal assembly a little bit, had it in and out another couple of times, and I spared you from the pain and anguish of that. But what I did was I put it in, and I feel that the pedal needed to swing forward a little bit further. Well, in fact, it did need to swing forward a little bit further because it was probably about 5 mil short of the push rod from the booster being able to go in there. So while it was there, I just checked it out. I was really happy with the throw of the pedal, as in it wasn't on a funny angle, but I thought I could make it a little bit better. So what I've done is I've got it back out, and I'll flip the camera around. I've got it back out, and that's it sitting on the bench there, and contrary to what I'd said previously, I won't bare metal it. Well, I decided I would. The part of the reason is when I go to paint it, the stuff that was on there from this originally being an umbrella stand, I don't know what it was, so the paint that I put on there could react to it, and I've had that happen before where it all crackles up. So I thought I'd spare myself the pain from that. Just giving it a clean up. I'll go through it and just do a couple more welds on it and so on as well. I don't think they're needed, but I don't know, I just want to do it. So like just little things like on the side of these brackets and so on. But what you'll see is that I've got these washers here as well. So what I felt was that the pedal was throwing out on an angle. I think it was that way. So I've just elongated the holes where the bolt comes through so that I've got some adjustment. Each way. Let's see if I can move this. So I can move the bolt each way. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put it back into the car, into the truck, get the pedal where I want it, and I'll mark out, I've got these washers, and I've just cut them so that they sit down in here. And once I've got the pedal where I want it, then I'll just tack these washers on. And if I feel I need a little bit more strength, then I can tack another one on as well. But I may also go through and just fill in the little bit of elongation that I've put in there and go through with my die grinder. So really just to adjust the angle that the pedal's on. Other than that, I'm really happy with it. And to extend the throw, I just notched out this little bit just here as well. So and that's just the throw forward. So I just notched that out a little bit. So it will end up being my pedal stop, I would say, as well. I may put a bit of rubber on the front of the pedal just to stop it banging. But that just gave me quite a bit more swing forward. So that'll solve my problem of the booster plunger alignment. And other than that, what I'm also going to do with this bolt, I'll feed it in from the other side. I've got it this way just at the moment. I'm going to spin it around, but I'm going to turn it into a pin rather than a bolt, because obviously I'd say this would have been set up for a clutch, for a vehicle with a manual gearbox originally. So I imagine, or actually I don't know what it looked like in the original vehicle, but this was the bolt. This was the bolt that was there. I'm going to turn it into a pin. So what I mean by that, I'm going to cut it off sort of about 10 mil longer than it needs to be. And then once I'm happy with it, I'll drill a hole through and I'll put a clip, probably an R clip, or even a split pin, but something in there to hold it in place so it's not going to fall out. The only action on it is in a pivoting manner. It's not got any sideways strain on it. So I'll just drill a hole through there, and then when I want to take the pedal in and out and out, what am I trying to say? In and out, then I can take the clip out, just slide the pin through. Later model cars have a pin with a clip, so I don't see why I can't make this do the same. So I'm going to bolt this thing back in shortly, and we'll see how it goes this time. I'll show you once it's in there. So I figured I'd just show you briefly the fun and games that it involves to put this column in. Remembering that I'm by myself here. I do have a wife and kids, but they're not here. They're at work doing their things. So I'm here and I'm trying to put this column in. Or actually not the column. The column I've just got sort of suspended there. But trying to put this bracket in. It's not too hard. I can sort of swing it underneath the dash and all that sort of stuff. It's not terrible to get in. But I've got to get the booster through the hole every time. You get all those holes lined up. So trying to hold this bracket in place and do that becomes quite challenging. So you come up with these creative little ideas. Bits of timber, they're my best friend at the moment. So never underestimate just the rubbish you have lying around. That's pretty much what I build my cars out of, but it's my helping hand as well. We're definitely winning. I've got this bolted back in. Tell you what, I'm getting pretty good at this. So I'm glad I did it because I remembered that I've still got to make some bolting points here. I've got the pedal into the booster, and that little adjustable method that I said with the washers there, I know exactly where it needs to go now, so that worked well. I've got the pedal here. It's connected to the booster. I can push that all the way and it doesn't hit the firewall and it returns. Haven't got the column mounted up yet, which I'll do in a moment, and that will end up swung around there, so the orientation is good. I need to check it. It's probably sitting a little bit higher than what I originally intended, but I'm sure it'll still be fine because I find that you generally tend to use the ball of your foot for braking, so I think the position there is good. I'm sure there's a standard and I probably should really check that. Let's have a look in the engine bay. So I haven't got the column bolted up yet, as I just showed, but what I can show you is that this thing here, the booster, is absolutely rock solid. The bracing effect coming back from the booster, back to the dash, and then eventually once the steering column is bolted up is incredible. The amount of strength there is just fantastic. So I'm really happy with this. I'm going to paint this up. It might seem a bit weird because the rest of the truck looks absolutely disgusting, but I am going to paint this up once it's done, get it in etch primer, put some satin black paint on it. It'll get scratched, bring it in and out, but what I find is that this truck leaks. That may surprise you, but it leaks. If I get it in coat of etch primer and paint, then at least my work that I've done here won't rust up. And then when I go to do the cab, do the rest of the interior, then I won't have to contend with cleaning up rusty material that I've just been building. So might seem like a strange step, but it's going to save me time later. Happy with it. I'll bolt the column up and we'll come back in a minute. So literally about 2 minutes later, got the column bolted up. Now once again, I will change the hardware so that it's all matching and so on. Mind you, they are high tensile bolts that are there. So that's where we've got it. So the column, I've taken off there's another cover that normally goes there. I won't need that. So I can use my shift mechanism and so on. No interference with the ignition, the steering lock and all that sort of stuff. I can take my bungee cord off. Power steering, but you can barely see the wheel moving there, but the wheel is moving. So power assisted steering, which obviously isn't connected at the moment. And we've got the pedal in place. So I've got to say I'm exceptionally happy to be at this stage. Got fantastic travel on the pedal. I think it's good. I think it's coming up well. So I'm going to take this off for the last time, I hope, he says, in this immediate stage anyway. And I'm going to go through and put some mounting points in the dash here, some bolts and so on for those, get rid of those tech screws. And I'm going to weld those washers in place for the pivot on the brake pedal. I'm also going to turn that bolt into a pin. And what else am I going to do? And if I think I'm happy with that, I might do a couple of little spots of welding just here and there, grind those down, make it all flat and pretty, and then I'll give it a coat of paint, and then I'm going to consider this particular part a job done. And what that means is I can move across and start playing around with the throttle pedal. What I think I will do, however, depending on how heavy it is, I might clear some of this stuff out and go and grab the seat that I've got and put it in here, and then I can start working out some bracketry for it as well, work out the heights and all that sort of stuff. So that's what's coming up. So I haven't taken the column back out yet. I just decided while it was here I'd put some bolts in under there. So they're not evenly spaced or anything like that, but they do the job. So I just drilled the holes through there and then tapped into the square stock above there. They have a good bind there. So all they're really doing is stopping the column from moving around. They're not really doing anything structural as such. So I'm happy with that. I will put washers underneath them, spring washers and so on, but I thought I'd just get that done while I had the opportunity. So I reckon I could tow this car by that steering wheel now. So I'm pretty happy with it. So I've got it all, everything done that I said I was going to do. Modified this pin, so I've just got a washer for there. Welded a couple of washers around here, give it plenty of strength. That pin goes through there like that. That's just the bolt that's been modified, and that will sit like that. And then this was the smallest R clip I had. In fact, it was the only R clip I had. So it's a little bit oversized, but at least I won't be fumbling with trying to get it in once it's under there, under the dash. So that'll do the job. So that is the pivot point from the pedal. Got this all cleaned up, just went through, topped up some of the welds, and got it all done there. So it's all ready to go. So I've given it a sand down with 80 grit, and I'm just going to give it a wipe down with some wax and grease remover, which I get from my local supplier, Crash Supplies. Dino there always helps me out, so I was actually out there yesterday. So I'm going to give it a wipe down with wax and grease remover, let it dry, and then I'll give it a couple of coats of etch prime. Etch prime is for bare metal, so it etches into the metal. It's got a bit of phosphoric acid in it, I believe. Etches in, it becomes a primer, and then I can go over the top of it with my top coat, which will be some satin black. And that will be that. I think next time you'll see this, it will be under the dash and somewhat installed, and I will be moving along with something else. I'm not going to lie, this has actually taken a lot of work, but I'll show you once it's painted. Got some etch prime on those, threw a bit on the pedal as well. It's pretty rough still, but that's okay. I'm going to sort that out later. Just a tip, I know this and I overlooked it. Sharpie markers, you've got to get those marks off with something like thinners. There's some in there which I don't care about because that's where the pedal is, but they bleed through the paint. There's no avoiding it, so you've got to really make sure you get those marks off. If you ever do something that you care about, or that's got to be seen, then that'll just keep coming through the paint all the time. So the epoxy, the etch prime here might look a bit patchy, but the idea with this stuff is to not put it on too thick. The idea is that it etches into the metal, then it allows the paint to get onto it, to adhere to it, rather than just peel off the metal. Not very technically described then, but the idea is you don't want the stuff on too thick. Now, again, this isn't finished, but I just wanted to throw some on this work here. I've still got to finish off down the bottom here. I've got to do a little bit of welding here and trim around the edges. There's still work to do there, but I don't want it to rust up. So I've just thrown some on there for the time being. Those screws will come out. I'll have captured nuts in there and all that sort of stuff. That's for the plate, that adapter plate, not the adapter plate, the one that blocks off the hole. So you can see a better view of it there now with the column out. So still work to be done there, but it's all sort of cosmetic stuff really. The structural elements are done. Got the booster there. Again, if you haven't watched this series so far or anything that I've done, I rebuild everything. So just an important thing, brake components, steering components. The advice is never use second-hand components. Basically, I use second-hand components, but they will always be reconditioned. So every bush, every washer, every seal, whatever it may be, tie rod ends, ball joints, all that sort of stuff, it's always replaced. So everything you see here at the moment is mock-up and construction to be able to get it all together, and then it will be gone through and made to be 100%. Just looking forward, now that I've got the column sorted and everything, if I wanted to, and I don't know if it's urgent, well it's not urgent, but if I wanted to, I could start fabricating the panel that closes in around the steering column, for example. Actually don't know what I'm doing for gauges yet. The gauges on this are in the middle, which is odd. Typically, obviously the gauges are right in front of you. So once I get the column back in, I may be able to do something like that. So I don't know, I might patch this in the first place so that I can then play around with it and then cut it out later for gauges. We'll see. Up here, just as a bit of a segue, not a segue, variation. Up here you'll see all this rust around the windscreen. A couple of weeks ago you may have seen a video that I did. I went out and got that door and the grille, and I also got both sides of the windscreen garnish mould, which was great. I was thinking, do I make it? And I would have been prepared to make it, but I don't have to. So that was great. So we'll leave this and I'll throw some black paint on in a little while. Just on that, on this is fast dry etch. So what I'll do, I'll wait for it to dry, and then I'm going to get some Scotch-Brite, some green Scotch-Brite. I'll go over, just scuff it over, and then I will give it a coat of paint, and the Scotch-Brite just gives it some key or some tooth for the paint to be able to stick to. We'll come back then. One pedal assembly ready to be bolted in. My able-bodied assistant is going to help me in a little while, being my wonderful wife, and she's going to help me put the booster in because that's a task and I'm sick of doing it by myself. So we'll put it in, show you what it looks like. Just before I put the column back in, I just thought I'd give it a quick clean up, sand. I probably won't do it any better than that in the long run, to be honest, but I'm just going to throw some red primer on it so that when also that it doesn't rust up in the meantime, like I've explained several times. I will be finishing some stuff on there later, but other than putting some seam sealer over those joints at some point in time, that'll be about the extent of it. So my able-bodied assistant, Davina, my wife, is going to help me now put the booster in. So I'd just like to introduce you to Davina. Davina, this is the crew, this is Davina. These guys come and hang out with me once or twice a day and basically stand there and don't do anything. I could always use an extra set of helping hands, so this is it. So I can't ask for much more glamour either, so you guys can just stand there and wait. Okay, so I'm going to get the pedal assembly and pop it back in place, hopefully for the final time. And I'll get you to slip the booster through for me. That'd be Davina. Again, you guys can just sit there and do nothing. So this is it, by the way. Look at that. Created out of an umbrella stand. Okay, can you hold it there, please?
Yep.
Wow, that is so much easier.
Don't you have
You're
four
all
hands?
fired. Beg your pardon?
You don't have 4 hands?
I don't have 4 hands. Even if I did, they're not that long. Now guys, seriously, it wouldn't be that hard for you to just help me do that. Just push it through as much as you can.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. You're still pushing it through?
Yep. Can't get it through the firewall.
You got it? Fabulous.
Let go.
Yes. Thank you very much. Look at that.
Pleasure.
Now that wasn't hard, was it? Really? Thank you. Okay.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. And there we have it. The column mount, the brake booster mount, the pedal mount. Really happy with the pedal position. Exceptionally happy with the pedal position. I can put the throttle in and I can move along. So as I said, next thing, put the seat in, I'll pop the seat in, pop the pedal in. Probably while the seat's down here, I will fabricate the mounts for that as well, because why not? And yeah, it's all good. The only thing I've got to remember to do is put a little clip, little circlip on the back of the push rod just here. Nothing there at the moment. So pedal works just fine. Happy with that. And that's it. We have a completed power, what do we have? A column mount, column pedal booster bracket mount thingy. It's complete. And we have the booster in place, all ready for a later stage. Oh, that was a big effort. Thanks for joining me. That's the end of the session on this particular thing, the thingy, as I'm going to call it. Hang around for the next episode. Probably be the seat and the throttle pedal. Thanks again.